All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating, kind of mind-bending new way to think about life and death. It's a framework authored by Anubhav Srivastava, and you might be surprised where it starts. It's not in a science lab, but with a legend of the high seas.
So, what on earth can a pirate teach us about cheating death? I know, it sounds a little out there, but trust me, the answer is at the absolute heart of a radical new strategy. And it all kicks off with one of the greatest character entrances in movie history.
You know the scene, right? Captain Jack Sparrow sailing into Port Royal. But he's not on some grand, majestic ship. No, he's standing proudly atop the mast of this tiny, pathetic boat called the Jolly Mon, and it is sinking fast. Now, most people would be panicking, bailing water like their life depended on it. But not Jack. He just watches the water rise, and he calmly climbs one rung higher up the mast.
As his boat makes its inevitable journey to the bottom of the harbor, he just keeps climbing. And then, at the exact moment the very tip of the mast disappears under the waves, he doesn't leap for his life. He doesn't even get his boots wet. He just steps. He times it perfectly and steps right off the sinking ship and onto the solid wood of the dock. It's an absolute masterclass in timing.
And that right there, that single moment, perfectly captures the core idea from Anubhav Srivastava. The boat is gone. The captain continues. See, the point isn't to save the boat. The point is to save the captain. And that simple scene becomes the perfect metaphor for a whole new way of looking at our own mortality.
So, what's the boat in this story? Well, it's you. It's your body. In Srivastava's framework, your biological body is that leaky little dinghy. You can go to the gym, you can eat all the kale you want, but you're really just bailing water. That ship, the body, is going down, one way or another. The only real question is, what's your plan? And this is where we see two totally different mindsets. On one side, you've got the health fanatic. They're frantically bailing water, trying desperately to keep this wreck afloat, fighting a losing battle against entropy. But on the other side, you have what Srivastava calls the ECP architect, someone who's designing their own existential continuity plan. They're not panicking. They've accepted the boat is sinking, and they've got a much, much smarter plan. So what is that plan? Well, it's got two parts. Step one, you climb the mast. You use the time you have in your biological life to prepare the most important thing, the data, the memories, the personality, the blueprint of you. That's the captain. And step two, you build the dock. You start constructing the digital infrastructure, the platform that will be waiting for you right at the moment the boat finally goes under.
And if you get the timing right, if you've prepared correctly, then the end, well, it isn't a tragedy at all. It's just like Jack's trick. It's a transition. The biological machine fails, the signal fades, and then, step. The biological signal cuts out, and the digital signal cuts in. The body is gone. The captain continues.
Okay, now let's zoom out, because Srivastava takes this idea, this personal metaphor, and scales it up into a cosmic-level strategy for getting around the ultimate barrier, death itself. Think about it like this. Trying to make your physical body live forever is a lot like trying to build a spaceship that can break the speed of light with just raw engine power. It's a futile fight. You're trying to brute force your way past a fundamental law of the universe. In this case, entropy. You just can't win. The energy required becomes infinite.
So, what do physicists and sci-fi writers propose? You don't try to break the speed limit, you find a shortcut. You build a wormhole, you fold space and time. And that is exactly what Srivastava calls the wormhole strategy for consciousness. You have point A, your life right now. You have point B, the future where you can exist again. The huge, impossible distance between them, that's death. The strategy isn't to cross that distance, it's to fold it and make it irrelevant.
And this is maybe the most important takeaway. This strategy doesn't mean you beat death in a physical sense. Your body still dies, entropy still wins that particular battle against your flesh and bones. But if your identity, your core pattern, makes that transition successfully, who cares? The victory of biological death becomes completely and utterly irrelevant. This, of course, leads to the big question. What part of you are we actually saving here? Are we talking about uploading some kind of digital ghost into the machine? Well, not really. The whole idea requires we kind of update our old-fashioned concepts about the soul. You know, the old idea was that there's this magical, indivisible thing, a soul, a ghost, trapped in your body. And you can't really copy or move that. But the new idea, the one that makes all this possible, is that yourself isn't a ghost. It's a pattern. It's an incredibly complex, but ultimately reproducible pattern of information. It's a data set. And what can you do with a data set? You can record it, you can store it, and you can port it over to new hardware.
This quote from Srivastava just says it all, perfectly. We are the music, not the piano. We spend our whole lives identifying with the piano, this biological machine. But that's just the instrument. We are the unique song that it plays. The piano, well, it can break. It can fall out of tune. It can rot away. But the music? The music can be eternal as long as the sheet music is saved.
Okay, so that brings us to the final and probably the biggest objection anyone has to this idea. Wouldn't that digital person just be a copy, a clone? The real me would still be dead? To tackle that, we have to look at a biological illusion we all live with every single day.
We all feel like our consciousness is this one long, continuous stream of awareness from birth until death. But Srivastava argues that's just not true. It's an illusion. You aren't a solid line. You're a dotted line. You experience what he calls a nightly death. Every single time you fall into a deep, dreamless sleep, your consciousness just stops. It's gone. The you that wakes up in the morning is a fresh reboot, a new instance reassembled from the data stored in your brain's memory.
When you look at it that way, everything changes. What's the real difference between waking up tomorrow morning and waking up in a digital world 100 years from now? One is a reboot after an 8-hour gap on the same carbon hardware. The other is a reboot after a 100-year gap on new silicon hardware. But from your subjective point of view, the feeling of continuity pulled from your memories is exactly the same. Let's actually put a number on this. By the time you're 80 years old, you'll have gone through this cycle of nightly shutdown and morning reboot nearly 30,000 times. Think about that. You've done this before. In fact, you're an absolute expert at dying and being rebooted.
So the final question this whole framework leaves us with is a really powerful one. You are, and you have always been, a beautiful, complex copy of yourself, restarted fresh every morning from memory. You've already done that almost 30,000 times and been totally fine with it. So what's one longer night?